magic words on the right-hand side. And here we go. Next project. This project is going to be the album art project. I think I did an intro video for this 2 weeks ago now. But here we are into the production side of this thing. And as promised, this is the project that marries and combines illustration, Adobe Illustrator, graphic design, layout design, and what I want to do in the beginning of this project for everybody, especially for electronic illustration students that have spent the majority of their design careers working on how to draw hands or render hair or how to be able to make the most awesome My Little Pony renderings that have ever existed. For you bronies out there, maybe you haven't done that much with text yet. And there's a whole school of people out there that are in classes for 4 years learning about graphic design and learning how to pair fonts with imagery. And there's a whole bunch of rules that they're learning. So this project is the Cliff Notes version for you guys, the highlight reel, the stuff you actually use within graphic design that'll help you solve for 99% of the stuff that is out there. So you've been given a template for the CD. And I've got Adobe Illustrator opened here. It's a PDF. I opened up the PDF in Illustrator. It's going to read the vector information inside of there. There's all that stuff. But just like with Adobe, when you open it up out of the can, Illustrator likes to give you all kinds of extra pop-ups and things. And what I want to try and do is minimize all this stuff as much as I possibly can, so that I've got the maximum workspace. Now, here is the Photoshop users can use the PDF, or you can also open it up in Adobe Illustrator. But here's what we've got. So we've got a bleed section. So the blue line on the far outside is what's actually going to get cut. And then you need to make sure that your design goes over that bleed section so that you've got a full bleed. And if you do print this someday so that you don't get a white border around your CD, that'll make it look real Walmart parking lot. We don't want that to happen. But yeah, it's labeled here. We got a bleed, a trim line, a safety line. Just make sure that all your text is inside of that green line there to make sure that it prints okay. And then we've got the fold right in the middle. So this is kind of doing a book style fold for the CD or the jewel case, and that can be manipulated at the end with no big deal. This will get you started though. It's got you two squares with the sizing on each one of them, and yeah, it just gives you all the information that you need. Okay, next up, for myself, I am going to be doing the song Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Marvin Gaye. Recorded in 1966, came out as a single, and this is what I'm going to start working with. I've got my concept. I want to do a front and back cover in sort of this style. So a little bit funky. We're getting into the 60s, right? Going right up into the 70s. So we can make it a little bit psychedelic, a little bit funky with the color schemes and the way that we're going to render this thing. And then I want to do this with two different, a cowboy and a cowgirl. So the whole story is about some guy saying, he will climb any mountain. There's no river, valley, sea, anything to be able to keep him from getting to you. And so the theme of not only this album cover that I'm going to do, but two paintings that I'm working on right now, is a fella who is out on one side of a mountainscape, and then the second painting is his lady at the homestead over on the other side of the mountainscape, kind of looking from either side at one another. And the fella is, taking in the nature and riding towards her. He's got a big obstacle in his way, but he's going to get there for her. And while he's away or trying to get back to her, she's there standing outside the homestead, holding a gun, holding down the fort, and I think it paints a nice narrative picture between those two images. The painting that I'm doing is on stretched blue jean on canvas, or stretched blue jean across like on a Yeah, stretched into a canvas. I've never seen anyone paint on blue jean like this before, and I think it goes with the Western theme nicely. So we'll try to include some of that jean patterning into this illustration as well somewhere. But anywho, next up, first thing I want to show you guys, now that we've got the concept, we know what we're doing, is a little trick I learned a while ago that I've used an awful lot. If you didn't know you could do this, here's your first tip for this video series. So I've got an image of the original album, and when we zoom in here, you can't really see it, but it does have enough stuff. It is a high enough resolution image. I am just, instead of like trying to look at Wikipedia and pull all this stuff, I am just going to go to the internet and I'm going to go to image to text extractor, extract from image. Module 5. And there's my picture. All right, let's convert. See what we get. All righty. And this is one of those be careful where you click type of website things. All right, there we go. Let's just go into Illustrator. And now, getting that text in there, I'm just going to draw out a text box, fills up with lorem ipsum. And just that quick, I have got all the text from the front of that CD that we just saw a second ago. Pretty cool, right? So instead of having to go through Wikipedia and find it or trying to find all that extra information that's on there, like what year was it released? What is the VIN number on it? What is the size of the record? That type of thing. The trademark symbol, who wrote it, who's the recording company, all that good stuff that actually appeared on the album. You can pull that stuff by going to the image to text converter. And all I simply did was go into Google and type in image to text. And the first one up at the top does a pretty good job of getting the job done. All right, so our next rule that we want to look at here is font pairings. When it comes to fonts, there are classical pairings and there are, all right, let me show you. Classical font pairings. Lots of different articles out here on the internet about different font pairings. Oh, come on, Adobe. They've become such a bully where everything's behind a wall. It's like trying to read the Wall Street Journal. Okay. All right. So we'll use this one instead. I think this will get us there. And I like this because it's giving us some three different levels. So we've got a header font, a subheader, and then a body font below it. Okay, so that's the hierarchy that we're seeing here. The header is going to be the title font. So what, ain't no mountain high enough is going to be written where it says clean in the top left-hand side. By Marvin Gaye is going to be the elegant, and then any other ancillary information like the publisher, the year that it came out, that's going to appear on the album cover is going to be in that body copy down at the bottom. These three levels of hierarchy are used, now that you know about it, you'll start to see it absolutely everywhere within the design world. It's a shame that so many fashion brands have been simplifying their logos into just something that looks like in the top right hand side the simple and polished version, where it seems like every car company fashion label is going into something like this, or super thin text, and they're all starting to look exactly the same and losing a lot of their embellishment. Now, that said, when we go to a website like thefont.com or 1001 fonts, where you get all of these, what's the word for it? Display fonts. And these have got very niche uses to them. You got to be careful with them. If you say, okay, I'm doing a heavy metal album, and all of a sudden I want a font that's made all up of lightning bolts, like the Metallica logo, and then you pull that font that's made of lightning bolts, and you just use that right out of the can, it's going to look really tacky. It's not going to look polished. And there's some pushing and pulling that you need to do to make any of those header fonts actually look good and look like they have been, air quotes, treated. Treated. They've had some treatment done to them to make them look nice. So here's just, some pairings that I think work really well. So we've got some that have got a serif and some that are sans serif. A serif is the font world's fancy way of saying those little feet that are hanging off the end of the fonts. Sans means strike through, does not have, so no serif. Serif fonts have feet. Sans serifs have no feet attached to the font. There's a few other classic font stylings out there, but if you find yourself at a table with graphic designers, this will help you out. There's some other big popular fonts that everyone uses that'll make graphic designers roll their eyes, like Helvetica or Garamond, which are extremely similar. And anyways, we're going down a tangent. Let's look at some other quick start guides for illustrators that are trying to get into font pairings. Best free fonts of 2024. There we go. Invanto, I pay for it. It ends up earning its money for me usually if I'm contracting that year. But let's go to, instead of free fonts of December, let's do it by month. Made by Shape. That looks like a winner. I think we're going to see what we're looking for here. Yeah, this is it. So there are hundreds and hundreds of websites out there on the internet so that you don't just have to go to the font or 1001fonts.com to find the font that you're looking for. You also have Adobe fonts, but that can be completely overwhelming. You are not a graphic designer. You don't have 1,000, 2,000 fonts saved on your computer that have been carefully curated. So, for the sake of time within your world as an illustrator that's being forced, sometimes against your will, to use to have to pick text and pair your beautiful illustrations with text and fonts, these can be a great crutch. So you'll type into Google, you can do it for any month of the year. Usually I do the previous year because then they'll be good and free and they're already established. But if you type in best free fonts for designers month previous year onto Google, it'll bring up a website that looks like this. Now, what you're going to start seeing are these really, really cool little display boards. And these display boards are showing off the fonts that you can download. And you will see this font used in a beautiful graphic design way. Now, they most oftentimes have air quotes given treatment to this font. So they have pushed it, they have pulled it, they have sized it, they have picked great imagery that goes along perfectly with this font. And what you're seeing in this particular image is the best um, representation of how this font can be used, right? Whatever designer made this font likely made this image, and this is them showing off, what they envision and sort of the mood board for this font. And it goes on, right? So we'll see a couple more of these. Wild World, look at that. That looks fun, right? Really cool image, minimalist, lots of breathing space. That's a big thing within graphic design, breathing spaced. Resist Sands. That's a funky one. Oh boy, look at that. What makes it funky, right? At first, it just looks a little bit off. You can see on the inside of the E that they've bowed out the characters just a little bit, and there's just a little bit of extra curve in all kinds of places on the inside of the R as well, where it shouldn't be. So this is the inside of the A has got it as well, and that just gives you this slight feeling of unease and sort of tightness. Um, Things just aren't how they're supposed to be. There we go. That's a nice clean one. Look at harmony with the Western scene there. It looks straight out of a Ralph Lauren catalog. Love it. Thunder. Pretty cool. Um, However, Thunder could be a little bit difficult for readability. There's not really a lot of spacing in between any of those letters. So if you're going to use Thunder, you better use it big so people can actually read what each letter is. Otherwise, it is going to, and you can see how tightly they've pushed all those letters together as well to give it that impression and very precisely make sure that the kerning and spacing between these letters matches the spacing on the inside of the letters too. That's what's making it look good. That's the treatment part that I was talking about. Ooh, look at that. Magilio. Again, they've likely scaled these letters up, pushed and pulled them around to get this exact type of look. It's a weird font. Look at that. We got one eye that has the top on it, the Mag Magilio. That's an L. Oh God, I've never seen an L with just a sort of a flower top on it like that before. Got some of that new age 90s throwback design going on. New and so what you want to do here, shrimp. That one's popular like every single year. They've been giving that font away. You see it everywhere in any kind of trendy shopping center. New Wake, that looks pretty cool. But what you want to appreciate here, mm, says tropical. I don't think it really reads as all that tropical. It's more Persian to me with some of the letter forms that are going on here because that looks like a sort of a serif, like a Sanskrit type of font face or an old mixed with an old English. That's a pretty unique one. Let's get that one. All right. So this one, after you click on download, then it's going to bring you to another page. Looks like we're going to get to see a whole bunch of other uses, really beautiful graphic design and layout, and these are worth studying. So it's worth looking at how the designer is laying out and using this particular font, what kind of color schemes they're using with it, what is the overall aesthetic, and if you try to bend too far away from this, you're going to run into some issues. Look at that. That's pretty fun. Totally old school. Yeah. Stamps. Still trying to keep the island theme going on. Yeah, look at that. So then it'll end up sending you to a third website. All right. And let's go ahead and download it. Sometimes, there we go. We got it. And we're just going to double click and hit install, and then it'll be on our computer. So what I like to do, oops, don't want all those, just want this guy, module 5. Whenever I'm working in graphic design, what I'm going to end up doing is inside of the folder that I'm working in, drop in the fonts. So if I'm doing an illustration and I've got to hand this off to a client, you want to make sure that the font is easy for you in your Dropbox folder, your shared drive, wherever it is for you to be able to share out. So save those fonts. Don't just save them in your download folder. Don't just put them in one big fonts folder on your desktop. Put the font specifically for the project that you're working on, and in that way you will be able to go back and find it later on as well. It just keeps things nice and neat for the future of graphic design. So just to reiterate real quickly, what happened here is we went from 50 best fonts of a particular month into their display page on whatever gallery site they have. And then from there, hopefully, if you're lucky, it'll link you out to a shared drive like this. Sometimes it's going to bring you in and it's going to make you like sign up for some kind of email or like make you drop your email to get these free fonts. It is what it is. Decide if you want to do that or not. You can always unsubscribe. But what I want to look at next here is how to be able to pair this font with something else. So let's go back into module 5, look at the fonts. We're going to open it up. All right, here she is. Now, this, when it comes to font pairing, what we're looking for here with other fonts is sort of a size comparison. We're looking for unique characters. We're looking for unique fixtures of this font. So this line, the quick brown fox jumps over the whatever, has got every letter of the alphabet in it. That's why they use that, and they have been forever. But it allows you to be able to see each one of the characters. And I can't see it in caps, but I can see some interesting things that I'm going to be looking for as I start to find a pairing. So if this is the title font, and then I've got my subtitle font that I want. We saw on that other page that it can have contrast, right? So if you remember, one of them was in cursive and the other one was like straight letters, or sometimes it had the serifs, the feet on it. Sometimes it didn't. How do you actually make two fonts pair well together? Now, let's have a look at this thing. So the trick is that we want to look at the characteristics of the font. To be able to make them work together. They can be different, they can be radically different from one another, but they need to have some comparable qualities. For example, if we look at the W on the word brown within this font, we'll see that the W has got two thick bars with thin counter bars. And that is a characteristic of this font. So we're going to pair, see that same rule case used over and over again. It happens with the V within over. It's also going to be happening with the X, and that thick to thin at the connector is happening on the U's, the M's, the P's. So we've got a font that has thick and thin, even though it's a highly unique font, thick and thin. We also have an O shape and P's, anything that has an interior to it that is taller than it is wide. So this font has got some height to it. So when I go in and I start looking for paired fonts, those are the characteristics that I'm looking for. It's kind of like creating a shopping list inside of my head, right? So I'm looking for a font that has thick and thin. I'm looking for something that does not have rounded O shapes. Instead, the O's are a little bit more upright. This font has got an extremely unique O that the shape that's creating is almost like Old English. So I want to lean against the Old English fonts. This font has also got some really cool sort of scallop shapes at the end of the B and the K, and you can see how much it's dipping into the Q. So if I can find another font that's got some of that scalloping to it, the thick and thin, no matter what it is, it's probably going to go pretty well because it matches within the same family of design. That's what you're looking for, right? Whatever your title font is, to be able to pick your subtitle, you want it to be loosely related or in contrast to this other one, but there still needs to be two or three things that are similar and related. And the easiest ones for me to make it look like I know what I'm doing here is if I've got a tall O shape or a perfectly round O shape within the font, if I can match that, I'm doing pretty good. So, and then if it's got the thick and thin, or if it's got some kind of like third characteristic to it, we're going to be looking for that. So, for example, if you've got a font that is, let's see if I can find that other page that we were just looking at. Where'd you go, buddy? This one. Cool. So let's see if those rules apply here. And this is what I wanted to bring up. So this font pairing between timeless and classy, how could we say that these two are related to one another? I don't believe that we really can. So I don't think that this one right here works as a good font pairing. I think that this is bad graphic design. Now, if we look at the one on the left between clean and elegant, can we find anything that's the same? So clean up at the top has got the feet on it. Elegant is in cursive. How could they're very, very different from one another. However, the similarity is that they have thick and thin. You see the bottom of the N shape there on the clean word, how thin it gets, and then the thick bar. And then the same thing is happening with elegant as well. So in between the N on elegant, we've got thick, thin, thick. And that thick and thin patterning is working very well to make these two read and relate to one another. Let's try it again with refined and chic. Now, these two words at first are very, very different from one another. However, both of them have got an awful lot of height. I would bet that the height of the capital I here in chic is the same as the capital within the refined word. Um, let's see. Okay. Also, the crossbar where the H, it's raised up just a little bit higher than it is on the ground, is the same within the word refined. So the E, the crossbar on the E, the F, and the R is all a little bit higher than it is lower to the ground, which is making these two match with one another. This one again has got that thick and thin in the word refined happening with it. So as the end of the E's move in, they get thinner. The bottom of the D becomes thin, the D becomes thick in the middle. And the same thing is happening with this word chic. So we've got thick in the middle, thin at the bottom, thin in the middle, and thick on the verticals. So they're related, right? So that's what we're looking for are those types of rules. Same thing's happening here with fine and exquisite. Both of them have serifs. We've got a little bit of tapering that's happening down at the bottom of the Q. Same thing is happening with the N as well. So these fonts are closely related and they work together. And that's the rule. That's what you're looking for. Even though they're explicitly different fonts from one another, if you can find those same type of rules and relationships to one another within the letter forms, it's going to work. I know I'm talking about this for a while, but it's important. So now we've got, I think it's called like tropical or something like that. Not getting stuck. I'm calling it tropical. We can make it feel like something else. There we go. Let's get nice and big here. I'm going to go in and use the same rule that we do within Photoshop, where we're working on a gray background at first, just so we don't burn our eyes out. And that layer below. Where'd my fonts go? What the heck? Oh, I know what I did. Thanks for your patience. Welcome back after a week off. All right, there we go. Now we can actually see what we're looking at, and we're starting to get into something here. Cool. So this is just a quick visual reminder. Now we can really get into this font and look at it. So we've got those same rules that we've seen in that quick little graphic all these images are talking about the same stuff, right? And this one's got some unique elements, and we've got a much better idea of how we compare this. So we're looking for something with highs and lows, a little bit higher uptick on the lettering if we can find it. So now let's go dig into those 50 best fonts, see if we can find anything related to it. So Lico, if it had the angled up, I'd go for it. See the E there? Right. So I think that's going to be important. Um, I don't want to lose him. Let's go into Google. Now we're in the gutter of fonts, baby. 1001 fonts. And so as I start to roll through here, gives you a couple different options to look for. So I went into haute couture, and we're looking for something with thick and thin and upswing on the font. Wow. So that does have thick and thin. Hate the little star there. It's got the upswing and it's got the scallops. Brilliant. I think this one could work. Okay, so we're hitting the download. Man, that one's really cool looking too. So one of the nice things about this, it has come a long way since the early internet. We can actually change the text for what we want it to say. Now we can really see it a lot quicker for how it's going to pair together. So Marvin Gaye and capitals. Got the thick and thin. It doesn't, now it's sort of revealing itself. Let's try. I want to see the lowercase as well. The lowercase is where this thing really shines and becomes interesting. Still worth downloading it, but this will let me quickly check to see if we have any upswings on the letters. So there's a variation of the one we saw just a second ago. A little bit more thickness on there. Got the thick and thin. The A's aren't quite going up, but I think they make up for themselves. That's a little bit ugly with the taper at the end there. I think it's too small compared to the rest of the lettering. So this isn't as balanced of a font. Look at that. All right. It's got the thick and thin. It doesn't have any of the upswing to it. Wow, that one's crazy looking. Let's go back into. Now my first one's looking boring. We got some really pretty ones. I want it. All right. These are cool. Okay. And that's kind of what happens when you get to 1001 fonts. You think, oh man, these are so unique looking. This is totally going to work for my project. And then you have no prayer of ever getting these guys to actually match together. Pretty unique looking fonts, though. I think there's some cool stuff that we can do to give these a treatment. It's one of the reasons why I'm picking this particular style as well, because it's kind of funky and we can overlay the letters on top of one another nicely. Let's go back in. Sorry, just doing a quick comparison. The other one's a little bit more Old English. Oh, come on, buddy. And then it stopped wanting to do it. That's okay. I think we've got enough here pretty quickly so that I don't, you can get sucked into the font picking well and you can spend ages there. I don't recommend doing that. All right, so we've got 4 fonts in a WinZip folder. Cutting those from my downloads folder and dropping the WinZip files into my fonts folder so that they're all located together. Sometimes, man, I've gone font hunting and you'll end up with, oops, 25 fonts, and then it becomes really confusing trying to unzip all these. Just leaving them in their WinZip folder for right now. We'll have to go back and check the names. I haven't even read what the names are of these things yet. I'm just trying to get them installed as quickly as possible. And this is sort of the methodology, right? So I haven't even really started drawing yet. I have an idea of what my drawing is going to look like, but you'll be surprised if you pick your fonts first and you know what your text is going to say and get that stuff laid out nicely and looking good, then the image will fall into place a lot better. And you'll actually learn a lot about your image and how you might paint your image once you've got your text picked. It's a lot harder to find a font that matches with the image than it is to find the font first, then paint the image. In my experience, it took me a long time to come to that conclusion. All right, so we got Calgary, Brilliant, Angel, and Astera. So let's get back into Illustrator. And for right now, we're going to go off the reservation. All right. Come on, buddy. Copy. There it goes. 3 and 4. And Marvin Gaye. Uh-oh. Where'd they go? I think I lost that bit of the text. That's unfortunate. All right. So what do we say those fonts were? First, let's do the tropical. We got it. So what I'm going to do over here is start my font pairing. So I just want to see them lined up next to one another. You can do it vertical, horizontal, it doesn't really matter. Calgary. All right, Calgary demo. Cool. All right, well, that one already is looking pretty nice. We haven't even gotten that close into it. And I just want to be able to quickly see these next to one another. There we go. One. And I'm going to compare if one is feeling stronger, brilliant, the next one up. I might switch them. There we go. And next up, so you can see some of them are going to come out bigger, smaller. That doesn't really matter. Angel. That's a fun name. All right. Oh yeah, that funky one. That might end up being the title here. All right, and so far, I think we're beat for beat. These are looking pretty strong with one another. So I think they're looking right. But we are seeing some stuff already. Whereas, this lettering, the Tammy Terrell with the two T's, isn't really flowing that well together, and it's becoming repetitive. And that's letting me know there's some kind of treatment that needs to happen there, and maybe this isn't the right solution. And we'll get into that in a sec. All right, so that's just sort of a red flag that's going off. And then AEST. Cool. Oh, Asteria. That one's fun too. All right. Look at that M on there for Marvin. Nice. So with these four here, based on the rules that we were talking about just a moment ago, I think you can see that the relationships are there because I went smart shopping and really looked at that first font. Oh, go ahead and save this guy. Okay. Cannot save the file as a short person cannot be embedded because of licensing restrictions. Okay, let's leave that alone for now. That's the first time I've ever seen that. So here we go. It's a cool font. I want to be able to try to use it in some kind of way. So we might have to do a trace and get it out of here so it's not recognizing that it's being used. But it doesn't stop us from being able to compare the fonts. Now, what's happening? So ain't no mountain high enough is in all caps right now. That's not giving us the clearest picture between the two. So let's try switching these two guys. Let's take this one. I think that one, oops, Control C, Control V, is feeling more like that got real boring, didn't it? AE. Wow, yeah, that is funky. And if we're doing like a weird sort of 19, late mid to late 60s hippie counterculture is just starting to come in, that's got the funk. I like it. I like it a lot. That looks really cool already. But there's some stuff that we can do to make it look even better, and we're to go through. All right, so Tropical, now we need that one. All right. So down below, we got one that is really eccentric and another one that is pairing up with it nicely. So this already looks pretty good together. Readability wise, man, that E is hurting and suffering. That M needs a little bit of love, and there's some more stuff that we can do with it. But by all accounts, my gosh, we have found an O that is relatable. Almost to the really unique O form in Ain't No Mountain. All right, so that's all looking pretty cool. I like it. I really like the mountain high enough. I think that's feeling pretty strong. I just want to look real quick here to see if there's any other pairings that I think might work with this. So our first font ended up being our subhead. We should be able to find a body copy font easy enough. And so what I'm doing right now is just doing one more comparison just to be safe. Uh, I think that it's all working pretty well. Okay. Yeah, we've only got one for Tropical. Yeah, just a bold case. Huh. So just looking through these two letter forms and seeing which one maybe compares a little bit better. Oh yeah, and this font gets real boring when you take it out of its caps. That happens a lot with some of these. Okay, G in there. See now that G is more normal than the lowercase g. All right, so we've got thick and thin. Those are very closely related. This one is just a little bit wider than the other one. Trying to see, so I'm relating, see the T's are identical here. That A, I think, matches a little bit better. All right, tropical, you're out. All right, this one won. It won because the letter forms are just matching up a little bit better. Still not the most readable font in the entire world, but we've got one thing that I like about this is that it is a long title, right? Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Marvin Gaye and another artist, Tammy Terrell, and Tammy with all the same letters. So two T's, two M's, two R's, two E's, two L's. That's a lot of the same letter. But we're going to make it work. So now we're going to start looking in. Now that we've got our font pairing, let's get these other guys, you know, they're fun to look at later on, but that's going to be our winner. All right. So now, next step from the winner of the font pairing, first font pairing of the year 2025, we are going to pull this out and we're going to start messing with it. So let's go back into the old Googles and see what a quick Google image search gives us to look at. All right, font lockups. Cool. So this is what I want you guys to think about now. For most of y'all, where you're at in your brains when it comes to graphic design, text treatment, text is, and this is why I'm talking about this right from the beginning, text is the last thing that you ever think about when you're approaching design. It's just not at the top of the list for things that you care about. So for most of you guys right now, if I don't do this, you are going to just, slap some out of the box text onto this album cover. Focus 99% of your time on the illustration, 1% on picking the font, and you're not going to go through these steps. However, it's these steps that make the graphic design sing and push your work to that professional level. So understanding this stuff that I'm about to show you and talk to you about, all this stuff is really, really useful. So change your life if you've never thought about any of these things before. What we're looking up next is font lockups. Now, lockups is the treatment phase. This is where we go through and we start to rearrange the font in interesting, readable ways. Be careful with this. There's lots of funny graphic design examples out there where someone puts two words too close together and it ends up spelling out something completely different than what they originally intended. So, readability and natural flow is always number one with these. There you go, Mighty Rooster. There's an example of a lockup. But if we look at gardening, I don't know what that's supposed to say. Here's another one that's barely readable. Let's see if we can get to this. I wanted to really see the others. Okay. Yeah, still not all that great. There's many, many, many more interesting font lockups and pairings. Okay. So light roast here. We've got one that's over on the side, the other that's on the right. It's being balanced by the coffee beans, and then this, like, I guess, Surgeon General's warning on the left-hand side. I'm not sure what that is. Ah, here we go. That's what we want. A big old page of hipster logos. So with the hipster logos, you've got font lockups 101, oftentimes paired with some kind of icon and minimalized ornament on it as well. But none of these are really all that great. But you can see how alone backpacking reads really nicely. They're pairing the K and the L together and finding those letter forms that match up. Weird. Oh, here we go. This will work. Nope, that's still got the ornament around it, though it's done a little bit better. Can't quite zoom in on this. I hate Pinterest. Awful. Awful for being able to quickly look at things. Okay, this will work. Okay. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, when we look at the way that this font is written and paired, we've got some letters that are higher, some levels letters that are lower. We've got some level letters that are on a curve. We are created equal, and it starts to flow together nicely, even though it looks like it's on a chalkboard. The pursuit of is smaller. Happiness is on a curve, and those letters are getting longer down there at the bottom. The same thing with the pursuit, starting big and it's getting thin. The pairing of the Miller High Life logo with the word Liberty, in lobster font, that among these are, and it's got a nice flow to it. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about font treatment. There's tips and tricks and things that you can do. Ah, here we go. To with these fonts, with these different words that are going to make them read better and look like you put some effort into it. And it's going to make all the difference in the world with these designs. So that's why I like that I've got a lot of words to be able to work with. Enough talk, a little more action here. All right. So first off, we got Ain't No Mountain. Let's drop it down. You know, text box similar to InDesign. All righty. So what's important here? We got ain't no mountain high enough. Right now, all of these words are completely the same. We're going to bring ain't no. Man, ooh, look at how the A and the M is all kind of lining up. However, the high enough isn't really matching up with anything there. So let's cut those out. But you can't beat that A and the M lining up with one another. Those look great. And there we go. So that's looking pretty good. The NO, I think, is a little bit boring, so I'm going to cut it. And I'm just going to bring this and scale it up. That N doesn't really read as an N right now. And then high enough So what have we got here? That's working pretty well for me. Let's see if we can't bring up the size of the A and the M a little bit more. So let's go to 60. And I'm just breaking all this stuff apart. Now, 8 is really reading well. Let's bring up the scale of the M. I'm going to cut it out, separate it from mountain. Get it lining up in that beautiful pairing that it was just a second ago. There we go. I love that interior space that's being created. It's almost Art Nouveau now, but still hippie. And now, high enough. Hanging out right under there. So I want to make sure that make it a little bit larger. Now, I haven't really pushed any of these letters together yet. So they're all the out of the box spacing that's going on with them also, which is a little bit of a problem. But we have just very, very quickly constructed from a straight across line here. See how boring that looks, right? Not that visually interesting. We're not really making art. It doesn't have good line flow into something that's starting to get there. That's starting to look quite a bit stronger. Let's get rid of that O. I don't like it. And one of the things that really made me love the Tropical font before was the O. And because we know that these fonts are related to one another, so 8 is too big. Let's leave that down here. We can get that weird O out of there. And leave that one in so that it becomes unique. Let's give it a little bit more spacing. We're kind of messing up our spacing now. Okay, I got it. So ain't no mountain high enough. I think the readability is working nicely there. And I'm just messing around with my spacing now. So I'm keeping in mind the O is a little bit lower. These words, sorry, you change one thing and then you got to start messing with all the other stuff. So mm, so what I'm looking at real quick, oh my goodness, the Wheel of Time really wants to play. I've restarted the show 3 times. I still can't get into it. But they got a new season. Maybe they fixed it. All right. So what I'm looking at here is the spacing between mountain and enough, right? So that spacing stays consistent throughout all three of these. However, if I bring up my spacing between these two letters, they're not exactly the same. So we've got a little bit of an issue that's happening. I want to be able to keep the spacing the same to make things nice and clean here. Um, if I bring up, if I mess up with the A, here's what happens. Okay, so let's get that stuff out of there. Leave that beautiful AM relationship alone. Don't mess with it. They're doing great. Okay. they're going to be the ones that make it. So now I'm making sure that these guys match up. Cool. So that little trick that we just did makes a big difference as we start to zoom back. Now, having those gutters the same makes it look really, really nice and clean. Otherwise, without that, it's a little bit off, but it creates an issue. So this becomes like graphic design feels like a Sudoku puzzle for myself all the time. All right, so now we want to look at these guys and let's see here. So I think we can get the T over the top of the U in mountain so that it actually lines up. This is the kerning part of this puzzle. So we're going to go into Windows and we should have some kind of character alignment stroke. Character Pathfinder align transform. Nope. Where's my properties? Ah, here it is. Buried deep within the properties, under the characters drop down. So these guys, you've probably seen them since you were in middle school or first started using Microsoft Word or whatever way back in the day, and you've never really touched it. You've avoided it. The teacher threw out a whole bunch of different weird phrases very quickly for this stuff. You know, to be honest with you, I haven't spent the majority of my career as a graphic designer. I'm not an expert in these phrases at all, so I still have to mess around with them sometimes, but I know that one of these does something pretty cool. So one of them, nope, this one. Come on now. Is going to allow me to move up. There it is. Move this thing over. Almost there. So now we got the T, and now we want to, let's cut that guy, see what happens. The T's doing its thing. Let's go to 50. There it is. So those two are matching up nicely now, but it's not entirely even. So now we got to go back, push this guy over, and go with 25. Oops. What font that just turned into. There we go. Okay, so the spacing remains even. Pushing things around, we've got the A inlined. Now we've got the N and the O to settle up. So let's just keep those two lines between the two different ends that are opposing one another looking nice. I like it that ain't no, the no in there gets a different font treatment to it. The E is still extraordinarily hard to read, so that might be something that we need to go back and fix or mess around with. But last thing that's kind of irking me now is that we've got that H for enough is just a little bit further out. It's not aligning with the N as nice as I think it could be. -100. And just pulling those in a little bit tighter is making the whole thing look a lot cleaner. Now, all these little things that I just did are really going to help the entire design come together and feel a lot more clean and a lot more classy. It's going to look nicer this way. Oh, and for whatever reason, I was just able to save now finally. Okay, cool. So we've got the Ain't No Mountain High Enough looking really, really nice. We've got a great title font now that's been treated. It's still in black and white. There's all kinds of other stuff that I can do. There's cleanup that I can run on this thing. There's no reason why you can't take a font within Illustrator and go to Object and go to Image Trace or Live Paint. Nope, what is it? Yeah, convert it to a shape. Object not converted. Create outlines. There we go. All right, so if we create the outlines from our font, suddenly we hit A, we've got all our vector information on this font. I can start to pull and push it around and start to manually adjust and move stuff. So if you don't like the way that things are quite working together, you can get really, really technical with this. Like that E, for example. I had my eye on this E here. Get out of here. And we are going to create outlines. That weird little space goes away. Now it reads like an E. Still the weirdest E ever, but it's working a lot better for me. It's not driving me as crazy. That was just a little bit too eccentric. You can always go in, put a lock on your layer, just like within Photoshop, create a new layer, and start cleaning things up further. For example, hit P on the keyboard. I think that this can be stronger. There we go. That looks better. That E again is still getting on my nerves. So I'm just doing a little bit of cleanup here. Holding shift to make a nice straight mark. Getting rid of that funkiness on the inside of it. Now it looks like the C is curved around. It's still unique. It works for me. The N, the N is backwards, right? I think the N is backwards here. So let's take these guys. Nope. All right. We're going to take the whole word and we're going to create an outline. Inside of here, I'm going to go to Object, Transform, Reflect. Oh, God, that feels better, doesn't it? Object, Transform, Reflect. Okay. Now our ends are actually readable. That's pretty cool. So what would happen with this same insane cavalier logic if we took our A and reflected it? Now all of a sudden it's matching up with that T quite a bit better. And we're kind of messing up the spacing within our letters. No, that needs to stay the way it is. Okay. And now we've got this O here. Get rid of that O. Bring this O in. since that O was so unique, and that's what drove us to Tropicalia in the beginning. Make sure its spacing is correct, like the N is directly over it. That's looking pretty good to me. We're going to get rid of this O as well and sneak in Tropicalia O. No reason why you can't do this. No one will know. And now we've got that really annoying N as well that we're going to switch. So let's convert to outlines. Object, transform, rotate. Nope. Object, transform, reflect. There we go. Cool. That's working for me. I really like that we've got the thickness going on the outside of the M, our big M here, and now the N feels like it's lacking just a little bit on the right-hand side in each one of these. So I'm going to turn my font layer off again, and let's create just a little bit of a treatment on this N. So this is, if you're not getting it, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to treating the font. We're going to bring this on down. I was holding Shift, so that should be straight. And we are going to give this N a beard. Just grow a beard. All right, so when we look at it, it's a little bit messy. Hit A on the keyboard, grab my handles on the side. There we go. Looks a lot nicer. Pull this up just a little bit higher so it's smoother. That looks classier. Oh, much better. Wow, look at that. Huge change. So we're going to apply this beard to all the ends. Make sure it's lining up properly. We'll be able to combine this later on, flatten it. Shoot, you can even just export this as a PNG, bring it back in and export it or do a live trace on it to bring it in as one big old shape if that's what you want to do. There we go. Like that needs to go down. Maybe they're different sizes. I don't know. A little bit of cleanup. Too far. Now, you guys are following along still, and I haven't lost you. You have just become a world-class graphic designer. You are now allowed to charge, $500 to $800 for this particular logo that we're creating. And it's just about knowing the rules and really getting in there and doing this type of stuff that, frankly, no one else wants to do. Obsess over the in form. But I promise you, this is the type of stuff that creates iconic, lasting text and logo design. And if you think of it like a Sudoku puzzle, oh man, did all that stuff and I took my other in. There it is. Uh-oh. Object. Transform, reflect. There we go. So we've taken an out-of-the-box font, free font. They're able to download. We have manipulated it and we have changed it. We've made it better. We've applied the rules of design to this font in our designer's eyes to make the whole thing have a treatment and read nicely together. Come on now. Here we go. There it is. Cool. Nice. And we've got a nice bit of negative space in the top right-hand side. If we want to drop any kind of icon or anything like that in there, it works well. You can put this on a t-shirt, Marvin Gaye's face hanging out right in the top right-hand corner, but there's that negative space there. That likely will work well and feed into the painting that we're about to do. All right, so now we've got our big text. Let's save this out. Text treatment. We're going to leave that there and let's just do a copy and paste. So now this is all on one layer. Let's drop this in here. All right. Ain't no mountain high enough. That looks really, really nice and is going to look great with any type of styling that we put on this later on. So if I went in, changed the colors around, if I put an outline or a stroke or made it look like the letters or embossed or 3D or something, this is all going to work well and hold up strongly because we've taken the time from these foundational stages to be able to make this text work and look really, really, really good together, right? So we've been through a lot of different rules. Now, the next thing is we've got by the artist here, Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. We've got our bottom font, and this is reading nicely. So by Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. Let's see what we can do by starting to break this up just a little bit and giving it a treatment, but we don't want it to be as we don't want it to compete with what's going on up above. A lot of times they don't give you an amper. Oh, they did, but it's not treated in any kind of way. Yeah, we're back to Myriad Pro here. Yeah, so if it doesn't have one, it's defaulting to something else. So all I want to do is I'm going to line their names up. Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. Let's add a little less emphasis on the word and. Let's take the by, pull that out, shrink it again, making it about the same size. So we're creating sort of a stair step here. If you can see over on the right-hand side, the Terrell is going really far out. The and by Marvin Gaye is all working. I'm keeping in mind the spacing between everything. So right now, let's just do another one of those quick spot checks, those pink bars that I used a second ago. So the spacing here between and Tammy and by and Marvin Gaye is pretty much all the same, right? So where the bottom of the Y is hitting, I'll probably move this down just a little bit more. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not quite as clean as I'd like for it to be, but keeping the spacing rules, right? Like spacers in between each one of them will help an awful lot. I think that that feels pretty good for me. So Tammy Terrell, what can we do to add a little bit of treatment to all these double letters in here? Let's pull those two R's together. End with a capital. No, Tammy, the two M's. We do. All right. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. And we're bringing Marvin Gaye down as well. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. So that looks pretty nice. Um, anything else interesting that I could do with these? I could type them out on a slant. Uh, hmm. Let's try, let's go to the Googles. We know that we're going to be doing an old Western logo here, or an old Western painting with the 60s theme. Oh my goodness. Hipster logos are the most popular thing to be able to download on the internet. But yeah, so Western, yeah, I don't really think you think too often about them putting it in the ribbons. Yeah, can bend it a little bit. Let's go back to looking at these two. So let's just leave that one there for now as sort of a base. So non-destructive editing. Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. So right now, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. The high enough is visually the same weight as Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell. So we just need to be able to separate them in the hierarchy. So they need to stay further across. If I put them too close to one another, I think that high enough is competing with Marvin Gaye. Now, the two little smaller letters on the side are working nicely here. So let's turn off our gray for a second and grab our logo. Oops. All on one layer. We keep it right up next to that green space. And now we've got Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. We can probably shrink the size of these two logos. Great deal. Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. Ain't No Mountain High Enough is absolutely huge right now. Let's bring it in just a little bit so that it fits up there nicely. And this is starting to segue us into our last little segment here. For this video, I know this is a lot of information. Again, if you've made it this far, hopefully this stuff is going to come in great handy for you throughout your careers. All right, so what I'm doing right now is just creating a black square I can see. So I get an idea of what the spacing is going to look like on this thing. Looks pretty good. Already clean. Now, you guys, if you've got treated font pairings and well-considered fonts, and you've done all this stuff, right? Then you are in a really good place. If I just put this on a shelf with this font and a gray background and black text, it looks clean. It's got plenty of breathing space. It is a solid looking cover, right? There's other text that you can see over here on the right-hand side that I'm also going to need to put on this thing. The year that it was released, we got the song title, Motown Corporation Records, 1967. Some of the other copyright information can go on the back, and then we'll also put any kind of notes on the back of this thing as well. But again, we want to do the front is going to be the guy looking over the mountain, and then the back is the woman looking back from the other side of the mountain, so the reverse of it. And she's protecting the homestead while he's out. In a way, I think it's a cool story. So we're checking the box for narrative illustration. Now, we've talked about text lockups and how you can arrange the text on curves. You can do interesting things to it. The hipster logos that you see everywhere are pretty good. All right. It's not really going to work as well for this project. Some of this ornament stuff can be really, really nice. I think that my text lock up here is in a good spot to be able to add just a little bit of ornament in that top right hand side. That's something I would do at the very end if I feel like it needs it, but I've got a complex illustration that I'm going to do within each one of these shots, and we'll figure that out at the very end. So I'm not going to add the ornament yet. I just want to make sure that my text feels good and treated at this stage. Now, let's look at some quick layout design. And I want to be able to explain how this works. So layout design, if you type that in, you're going to get a weird and wacky world of boxes and shapes and a lot of brochures and stuff like this. But layout design is a great thing to know about. What we're looking at here is the play of within graphic design. This image over here on the right-hand side where it says new page design, layout and editorial design. Da, 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 da. It's got all those little boxes. Those are measurement tools that people really into layout design end up using. We are illustrators, animators, motion graphics artists, 3D animators. Layout design is something we can do once we understand the rules, and we just need to know the game that they're playing. So layout design is the balance between the header, the subheader, the body copy, or any ancillary type that you might have on there, and the pictures. This image over here on the right-hand side, where it says new page design, does a good job of showing that balance and lockups with text that you might not consider. I highly recommend you stay away from bad corporate design stuff like this. A lot of times, this is not good design at all. It's really, really bad. And we want to be looking at more editorial and fashion magazine layouts or Zine layouts as well. Can be really, really useful to be able to understand this pairing and how this works. One of my favorite places I like to go to be able to see this is on Behance.net, which, oh gosh, I hope that Adobe doesn't make us log in. Oh, Adobe login. Cool. Please just let me go, man. Thank you, Adobe gods. All right, Behance. Still a great design website. We've got ArtStation out there for 3D and digital painting and matte painting and stuff like that. Behance is great for more product and production design stuff that's out there on the market. So in the top, I'm just going to type in layout. And you got layout design, print editorial magazine, and layout graphic designer. Well, that's kind of what our project is. So let's see if we can. I hope this doesn't get too into product, but I think this is going to give us some good ideas here. Cool. All right. So yeah, we're getting into there's designs, more of an idea of what we can do with this stuff. Okay. Art dog. What does that say? Contemporary deductions. Okay. With you, man. So here we go. No, I don't. Just maybe later. Okay. So what have we got here? these people have just gone through the same process that we did, right? They have got their treated logo. They've got a title for the magazine. They've got subtitles. You could think of that as a track list, just below the white tag that says 23. And then they've got all their breathing space for the imagery as well. And they've managed within this shot to fit one, two, three, four or five images, which looks pretty cool. And it's all got hierarchy and separation. It looks modern and clean. You can see how they're using a creative strategy for how they're laying out the font in the text. It looks like it's been cut out, it's tilted, but it's all still readable. It all still has a hierarchy. I'm showing you kind of an extreme example. Here's, oh boy, that's animated. We don't want that. Here's another one. So everything's on a tilt, and it's a cool magazine. Um, Portfolio 2024, another lockup. We've got the title, 2024 over there in that negative space. Then we've got the information right below it. Look at this photography. And there we go. What a track list, right? Got the numbers, the stuff's all over the place, and I think that it works. Some of it's upside down, okay? And but we've got a really simplified abstracted back image for that particular album. Hmm. There we go. Here's another bit of layout design. It's a little bit hard to see, but we've got the title portfolio, which is taking over the majority of the shot. I want to see the cover again. It's a really cool image right there. Great graphic design, styling. Mine. All right. Just keep in mind one more thing. We do not want anybody vector tracing, God, an artist head. This looks really, really weird. Doesn't look all that nice. Just an image trace. Don't do that. You can do better than that. Trying to find some other good examples here. Might be best at this point. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, this is all kinds of interesting layout design and copy treatments. This is where you get into the real nerdy stuff. But I love these types of things about different ways to be able to pair text and imagery together and how to actually make it look good. When I realized how bad I was at this, I realized that it was a weak point and it's something that I wanted to go in and get stronger at. Here's a more normal one. Okay, so here we go. Benin, top left-hand side, subtitle right below it. You can see how the title is fitting with the photography nicely. That's what this project's about for these album covers. A taste of summer down there at the bottom left-hand side. Plenty of spacing. Again, it fits well with the imagery. Lots of white space on the right-hand side, and then you've got that long line up the side with the unusual text. So let's go back in here. I think that all of this is working well. I'm happy with it. Let's just cut this for now. Actually, that's on its own layer. Nope. Yep. No, yeah. Cut you. We're going to put you on a new layer just for a little bit. Okay. Cool. Save that. Hide that. Put this up here. So what this means is all that look at layout design. What would happen if suddenly, let's go back to our pink bars, introducing a color. And I put it on my new layer, didn't I? Yep, sure did. There we go. So now what happens within this cover if I do like a cute little vertical thing here, and I've got some room to be able to make this thing much smaller, push it, gosh darn, right up to the edge. Now all of a sudden it looks a lot more contemporary, a lot more unique. I want to be able to give some strong breathing room to this. Or if we crop the names and put them on two different colors, that can look pretty interesting. And yeah, you can do some unusual, interesting things. This study of layout design and just taking note of it is an important step when you are creating graphic design and layout. Ain't no mountain high enough. Now all of a sudden it looks like it's wrapped. Looks pretty neat. It looks clean. Overall, this is a strong layout design. Even with the font and the copy over on the side, that one pink stripe, the treated mountain, this looks like something I could print off, put in my design portfolio, and other graphic designers would sit here and peel over what I've created right now for hours and go, oh, nice, very good consideration. I like the spacing, the minimalism. I see what he's trying to say there. Okay, that is the more you look at this layout design stuff and just look at how they're pairing the spacing, the fonts, the imagery, and making this stuff all start to work together, the better you're going to get at it, right? So there's a big picture of a lady putting some goo on her face and says skincare, the lowercase I. So there's a little bit of treatment there to give it a little bit of interest. Notice the strike underneath. Where is that text actually sitting? What is the scale of the text in a relationship to the overall page? How big is the subtitle or the subcopy here in comparison to the headline text on that page? How much spacing are they giving over to the side versus the top, the bottom? And I don't expect you guys to be experts at this, but if you just take some time, peel through, do a little bit of study, look at other options for layout design out there. I promise you, you will come up with some solutions that you as a graphic art, excuse me, an electronic illustrator, would not have thought of on your own for how all this stuff can work together. Wow, that's a lot. Come on, get unanimated here. I had a student that definitely saw this project and was inspired by it. Seen a motion graphic that a student did that looks just like that. I want to get one more example. So that's pretty cool, right? The page contents, it looks like it's ripped out, but it's actually two different mountains with a sky. One's upside down, one's a road. It's a really, really clever piece of graphic design here. Um, and I think that it looks pretty clean, big, bold, thick font. And yeah, it's a nice minimalist piece of graphic design. That's kind of a cool look as well, having the text or the illustration inside of the text itself. Might want to go in that direction. You're going to get some ideas. If you look at this layout stuff, this is very, very boring. That's uninteresting. This is overly done. The black is too heavy, but it'll give you some ideas, some stuff that you had not thought about before, and how to be able to pair your font with your picture and the scale relationship between the title of the album, the artist, and any other information that you need to put on the cover of this thing as well. So this has been a longer video recording. I hope this was helpful to get you guys thinking about this stuff. Consider it, use it. A lot of other people that are in college that are studying graphic design more so than electronic illustration. And by understanding the basics in this way, It is going to help you jump ahead. And it's going to be a skill that you're going to be asked at some point in your career to use, I guarantee you. All right. Thanks so much for listening to this. And yeah, till the next one, talk about some more cool stuff. Whew.